here we are.
Recording in progress.
We want to welcome everyone to our hybrid council meeting. And so we're going to do our very best to combine everyone who's here in person along with anyone who's watching us with Zoom. And we're going to do our very best to include everybody in this family of discussion as we go forward. Before we get too far and before I officially open the meeting, we always have some directions on how to participate with this meeting. So in this case, are we starting with our shining assistant city manager?
We can start with our city clerk, who's joining us from her office, and,
Okay.
then I'll have a few announcements as well.
Okay, then we'll go to our very special city clerk, Clementine, who's going to do her part of explaining how we participate in this hybrid meeting.
Yes, good evening. The City of Monterey is committed to the safe public attendance of its meetings. Masks are required for all who attend in person, regardless of vaccination status, except for those who are younger than 2 years old or have a medical condition that prevents wearing a mask. We ask that you please keep your phones and device speakers muted in order to prevent audio interference and any feedback with the hybrid meeting.
As we carefully return to more normal activities, the City of Monterey seeks to continue to offer virtual methods for public participation options. Governor Newsom's executive order remains in effect, providing greater flexibility for agencies holding public meetings during the pandemic. If you aren't joining us in person here at the council chambers, there are two ways to participate virtually in the meeting. The first is to join using the Zoom app on your computer or mobile device, and the second method is to call directly into the meeting. To join the meeting on Zoom on your computer, smartphone, or telephone, please use the link or the phone number on the agenda, which you'll find at isearchmonterey.org. And since the meeting is already started, you'll find that under the recent tab. To join us by telephone, please dial toll-free 833-568-8864, and then you'll enter the meeting ID number, which is 160-772-9333#. And when you're prompted to enter a participant ID, press pound one more time. Detailed instructions on how to use Zoom is available on our website at monterey.org/public meetings. To make a public comment using the Zoom app, you can virtually raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. If you've dialed in by phone, you can dial *9 and then unmute yourself again by dialing *6. We do ask that you do both, and public commenters will be muted until it's their turn to speak. I'll be calling on each speaker in the order of their hands raised, and we do ask, as always, that you please stay within the time limit established for today's meeting. We'll also have a countdown timer shown here in the council chambers and also on the screen. If you're connected live on Zoom, the timer is accurate with no delay. These public comments are being streamed live, and today's meeting is being streamed live on the city's YouTube account, which is online at youtube.com/City of Monterey with a 10-second delay, and then also on Comcast channel 25 with a 90-second delay. And as always, we look forward to receiving public comment today.
Good. Well, thank you, Clementine, and thank you, Nat. So with that introduction, we'll call our meeting officially to order. And please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America,
and to the republic
which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So before we get into our presentation, which is always an honor for us to do, I'm going to once again ask our special city clerk to introduce the Caring City Council, please.
Councilmember Albert,
Here.
Councilmember Hoffa,
Here.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Williamson,
Here.
and Mayor Roberson.
And I'm here as well, and there are three of us here in the chamber and two doing it by Zoom, and so far so good. So the first thing on our agenda is, as I said, it's always a pleasure to recognize the Defense Language Institute Quarterly Joint Service Awards. And it's always just a lot of fun for me and a pleasure. Bear with me. I'm going to just talk about the Defense Language Institute momentarily, and then we'll get into our presentation. And about 3,500 students yearly graduate from the Defense Language Institute, and they serve our country in sensitive national security positions. In the past, the prominent languages were Vietnamese, Russian, Korean, and Arabic. I talked to a student pre-pandemic who was helping volunteer in our city, and he said the Russian department was growing again at the DLI. So I asked him, why was that? He had a one-word answer: Putin. And so obviously, the languages that are taught at the DLI reflect really the situation of the world. There are 17 languages now, including several dialects of Arabic. The classes go anywhere from 36 weeks long to 64 weeks. The 64-week classes and certificates are Modern Standard Arabic, Egyptian Arabic, Iraqi Arabic, Levantine Arabic, Sudanese Arabic, Chinese Mandarin, Japanese, Korean, Pashto. And Pashto, when I was first mayor in the mid-'80s, we had never heard of it, along with Urdu. And obviously, those are languages that are taught right now. And it's always interesting to me to see how many different dialects there are of the Arabic language. And currently, there are about 50,000 DLI linguists throughout the world from all military services doing their duty to keep us safe and protected. DLI obviously is located at the Presidio of Monterey and includes members of all branches. And the DLI FLC conducts a protocol known as the Joint Enlisted Board each quarter to assess the motivation, knowledge, and ability to go above and beyond that of the average soldier, Marine, sailor, and airman. Non-commissioned officers, petty officers, and junior enlisted from each branch compete by displaying their knowledge in a variety of joint service subjects. And I'll get into that a little bit more when I read one of our proclamations. So we're very pleased this evening to honor Petty Officer First Class Zachary Acosta. I don't know if he is here.
I believe he has some medical.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate that very much. And also, we're very pleased that Airman First Class Samira Mehta from the U.S. Air Force is with us. Thank you for being here with us. And allow me to take a moment to share the proclamation. Proclamation honoring the Defense Language Institute Foreign Language Center's Quarterly Joint Service Award recipient, Airman First Class Samira Mehta. Whereas the Defense Language Institute Foreign Language Center has established the Quarterly Joint Service Non-Commissioned Officer, Petty Officer, and Junior Enlisted Board. And whereas as a recipient of the board award, Airman First Class Samira Mehta has demonstrated extraordinary personal abilities, leadership skills, and knowledge of the history of the Presidio of Monterey and the DLI FLC, chain of command, world events, customs and courtesies, first aid, code of conduct, uniform code of military justice, military leadership, and the armed forces insignia. Often we think our military friends and service people come to the DLI, they take a language, and that's it. Obviously, that's just a small part of what they're doing. And so I think that summary always really impresses me of how much they have to learn and how much they accomplish. And whereas the Monterey community is proud of the country's service members, as well as the outstanding relationship that we have with the DLI. So it's my pleasure as mayor, on behalf of the city council and all of our citizens, to recognize Airman First Class Samira Mehta, United States Air Force, for a job well done, and thank her for her continuing contributions to the armed services and to our nation. I had a chance to chat with Samira briefly, and this is her second time here in Monterey. She had attended Middlebury Institute. So we know you love Monterey, so we're glad that you're here. So what we'd like to do is welcome you to our podium, and you can share some thoughts.
Thank you so much for all the words you said. I would like to share a couple thoughts, but they will be in my target language. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and you guys can guess what my target language is.
Okay.
Okay. أهلا وسهلا، أنا اسمي سميرة وأنا جندية أول في القوات الجوية. أريد أن أشكركم للفرصة للتمثيل مجتمعي وحدتي ومعهد تفاعل اللغات. وصلت إلى مدينة مونتري منذ 6 شهور، ومع أن دراستي تحديا جدا، هذا منطقة جميلة جدا. أحب الأنشطة المختلفة وأيضا الجالية اللطيفة. شكرا للجائزة ومع السلامة.
All right. Do anyone here want to make a guess to the language that she just shared with us?
We have a multiple choice.
She told me earlier.
I mean, I would guess Arabic, but don't really know.
Yeah, I'm thinking Arabic
Arabic.
as well.
Was it one of the Arabic dialects that, no,
No, it's modern standard Arabic.
modern standard? Now, as I said, were all the other dialects also taught at the DLI, is my understanding?
They are, yes.
Wow, okay. And how many of us know where Levantine Arabic is spoken? Some of us do, probably. Our spectacular city manager knows. Lebanon, exactly, yes. Well, you know what we'd like to do at this point? Did you want to translate that for us?
Sure. I was just saying, my name is Samira Mehta. I am an airman first class in the United States Air Force. I wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to represent not only myself, but my squadron, my group, and the DLI all together. I arrived in Monterey about 6 months ago, and prior to that, I interned at the Center for Nonproliferation Studies. Ever since getting here, I have really enjoyed my studies at the DLI, although it's very challenging. And on those challenging days, it's especially amazing to walk around DLI or walk around Monterey, the beautiful environment, the various activities you can do, especially the extremely welcoming community.
Good.
And once again, just wanted to thank you for the recognition as well as the honor. And that's all I really had to say.
Well, I'm so pleased that you feel welcomed here and cared for, because that's very important to us. Because the DLI is part of our community. We have a fence around it, but we don't have a fence in our hearts. We don't have a fence in how we interact with our friends on the post. So that's very gratifying to hear. I welcome you to come forward. I'd like to give you your proclamation, and as you offered, we'll give it for Petty Officer Zachary Acosta too. And perhaps if our two council members can join me, and maybe we won't shake hands considering everything. If you'll come right up here, we'll and turn around for Chief Dave.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Great.
And we are smiling ear to ear
Yes.
under these masks.
So she's got to get one she can send to her mom where she can see her without a mask. So you got to find a place in front of City Hall to send something. Thank you for your work.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it.
And as always, we thank you, your families, your family support, and all of your compatriots and staff at the DLI, I know, who give you a lot of support.
Thank you so much.
Okay, enjoy the rest of your stay.
Thank you.
And you will graduate with honors, I know.
I hope so.
So
That is
her rope that she has on her left shoulder
Uh-huh.
signifies that she's one of the outstanding students. So it's not part of the typical uniform. It's an award
Okay,
that
got it.
identifies her as being an achiever.
Yeah, absolutely. You could tell that. Thank you for that. All right, public comments. And these public comments allows people in the audience or at home who'd like to address the city council on any items not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of the city of Monterey. And if you wanted to talk about any of the items on our consent agenda or closed session, we'll ask you to wait for the consent. This is also a good time for anyone who wants to comment on our closed session. This would be a good time for you to do that. So please share your public comments on non-agenda items or any closed session items. So we open it up to anyone who'd like to speak. We'll start off with the people here in the chamber, then Nat will get the queue going for anyone on Zoom. Okay, thank you. Hi, Tom. Yes, we can.
You're running a lot smoother than the first time we saw you.
Okay.
And it was, I think you were 45 minutes late starting that meeting.
Oh,
but
yeah,
it
we
is much
had,
better than, and you're looking, keep it up.
oh, well, thank you for that. Welcome.
Hi, my name is
Hi.
Dorit. I just have to get something off my chest
Mhm.
because I'm really aggravated about the rent increase. It's $125 more a month, and it's almost 10%. And I don't know what they're doing. I talked to single moms out there, a lot of renters, 2/3 of their income goes to rent. You know, a lot of people, this is crazy. And when is it going to stop? I mean, this is just what, every year it's going to be like $100, $150, you know? And then soon a one bedroom is going to be $3,000. That's really bad. And there's going to be a lot of homeless people here. I mean, get ready for this. I mean, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And there's nothing anybody could do about it. You know, it's just really bad. I mean, I talk to a lot of renters and people are suffering and struggling out there. And what happened to 1/3 of your income going to a rent instead of 2/3 of your income goes to rent? So that's, you know, I don't know what could be done about it. I just don't know. It's a big problem and it's going to get worse and worse for people here, you know. And the second thing I have, somebody stole my catalytic converter from my Toyota. And where I live, there's no lights, you know, anywhere. It's dark. I took pictures and streets, you know, other streets, it's just dark. But you guys spent a lot of funding on the bike path in Fremont, where that money could have been used for lights or security cameras somewhere to increase the security you know, because it's getting ridiculous, the crimes. I mean, why should my catalytic converter be stolen and, you know, nothing could be done about it? And so that's really upsetting. There's got to be a solution or funding for more lights, cameras to do something like that. And third, I guess they can convert ocean water to fresh water. So they started doing that. Did you hear about that? Well, you know, maybe somebody should talk to the water companies and get this going, because I think if we're in a drought and there's a lack of water in Monterey and Carmel, shouldn't we take the ocean water? They could figure it out in Africa. They could do it here and solve a lot of problems. So somebody address it to whoever, and that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If you are able to email us, if you email suggest@monterey.org, we can get you in touch with the housing department. And there may be some arbitration or mediation that can occur between you and your landlord.
I spoke to my landlord. He just goes on and on and on. And
Okay.
I just tired of dealing with him. It doesn't matter. It's the market rate, you know. It's
I hear
like,
you, yeah.
we have to go by them, even though the buildings are they own the buildings and outright, you know, they have to do what they have to do, you know. So
Yes,
it doesn't,
okay.
what are you gonna do?
Yeah, and on your catalytic converter, that happened to a family member of ours, and the insurance actually did pay for the replacement. So you might
Yeah, but
pursue that if you haven't yet.
Well, it was a 2006,
Right.
and the Mecca put $3,500, so I donated my
Oh,
vehicle.
did you? Okay, yeah, I know, it's just terrible. It's a rampant, there's just a crime wave going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing those thoughts.
And I'll email, thank you.
Yeah, okay, good. We'll look forward to hearing from you.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you, Chrissy. In business cards left and right, huh? Anyone else here who's present who wanted to share some thoughts? Okay, let's go to our Zoom. Do we have some of our friends on Zoom?
We do have a few friends on Zoom, Mr. Mayor,
Okay,
and
let's go.
the first caller is Luis Osorio. And Luis, are you there?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. Major Clyde and members of the City Council. I wanted to submit a comment, just like the prior speaker. After 30 years in Monterey, I still rent. I'm one of those people in the middle class that was never able to collect money for a down payment for a house. Clyde notes my wife is a preschool teacher and both our salaries were never enough. So today I received my rent increase letter from the landlord, a hefty almost 10% increase.
Wow.
And I mean, I'm lucky. As you know, I worked for the county for 26 years and I have a little bit of a pension, but I still have to work full time just to make ends meet here in this beautiful but very, very expensive community, as you know. The market in the capitalistic system seems to be working. The reasons for increasing the rent are current market, income and expenses for the property, maintenance, taxes, and other costs such as utilities. Now, I can only appreciate all the efforts that the city has made in the last few years because of the pressure from a lot of us and the residents, but obviously it is not enough. And one of the rules, not rules, but roles of government is to be the equalizer and to intervene in the market. The market is obviously lopsided in favor of the property owners, a lot of which own a lot of property and have been able to build a lot of the so-called intergenerational wealth. I wonder, and I feel for people that don't qualify or don't fit the statistics of being middle class, because as it's been said before, we are bound to be left without workers for the tourist industry and agriculture and all that if things keep going at the pace they are. So, I mean, my message is that all of you need to keep still working on trying to find ways to help people beyond what you're doing. I mean, there are a lot of the property managers or management companies that really don't care. And it's, it's just heartfelt thing for us to have to pony up almost $2,000 more a year in rent. So that's my comment. I mean, I wish you luck. And, I'm glad that you guys are all able to enjoy your properties. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luis. And let's see who else we have here. Switch screen momentarily. Next caller here is Esther Malkin. Welcome, Esther.
Hi, everybody. So I'm going to speak to what the previous two speakers spoke to, but I just want to bring something else up. In my neighborhood on English, there was a sewer problem that we discovered. Most of the houses in the area and probably in the city do not have something that's called a backflow valve. And my neighbors in the middle of the night had sewage come into their house that backed up. And the city was supposed to have replaced something out there in 2 years, that 8 years later, this happened because it hadn't been replaced. So I hope other homeowners are listening to this because that can happen to your homes. Apparently, it is something that in remodeled homes and newer homes is installed, but most of the homes in this city, as we know, are not fitting that category. So the city really should be a little bit more proactive in informing, homeowners on the status of what their streets are like. So going back to what the previous two speakers said, both of those speakers are renters, and Mangold is their property management company. They are the #1 owners of properties in our county. You guys have to really think about how the market rate is being controlled by property management companies that own companies. I am not talking about the mom and pop landlords like the one I live in, that I'm lucky enough to have a landlord that is not using that excuse of market rate, and she still makes a profit off of what I pay in rent. So we need to have a rental registry. We need to understand what the majority of the people that live in this city are going through as renters, who are your workers, who you have now had a problem getting to come back to work. And it's not because they don't want to come back to work. It's because very few people that I can think of wake up and say, I want to be a housekeeper for a hotel. I want to be a server. Nobody is that works those kind of jobs is able to afford the rents that you guys continue to allow to happen. AB 1482 gave a 10% max, but it's not enough when I, who have worked for corporate America for 20 years, get a 1.5% increase, but 10%, close to 10% is what my rent could technically go up to. You guys got to do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. And we will go to our next caller. And that's Jean Rash. Hi, Jean, welcome.
Hi. To the conversation at hand, I think when a home is sold in Monterey, you have to make sure that you have a sewer backflow valve. At least 11 years ago, that was required when we bought our home, and we were very glad to know that we had to install it. It was an old home. We were only the second owners in 60 years, so we were fine to do that. So that's a reassurance about the process in Monterey. The main reason I called, I just want to commend the city manager for the excellent work he's doing on the wharf leases. I know the residents have been pushing long and hard for the wharf leases to be at fair market value and to end the sweetheart deals. And I'm sure it has not been easy work, and it's not complete at all. I know you're in the middle of things, but I wanted to compliment the whole team on a job well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. And we have no other public, we just have one raised hand just now, so we'll let Joseph say a few words. Welcome, Joseph.
Thank you very kindly. Appreciate it, Mr. Mayor and the City Council. It's a pleasure to be on the agenda for this afternoon. I just wanted to also chime in on Esther's earlier comment regarding the sewer line repairs. We're here on English, and there were a lot of issues with the sewer pipes a couple of months ago, or actually a month ago, and they needed to make some repairs. Repairs were made a little further down on English before Montecito, but we never got feedback on the status of those repairs. So it'd be helpful for us in this community to find out what the repairs were, and then also what the status is of the sewer repairs for this particular area. We know that some of the pipes are old. We know, and we understand that throughout the city. We just wanted to know where exactly we are in the schedule for getting to the repairs. And to add one additional point, we were one of the homes with a backup valve that also experienced some of the issues with the sewage backflow. So, and some of my neighbors who did not have it had a very terrible situation. At about 1 a.m, we're all standing out in the middle of the street, along with some of the good city employees that came out to help alleviate the situation. So we'd love to know what the status is of the repairs on English, and then where we are in terms of the priority in terms of getting this sewer line, my understanding, repaired. So thank you.
And Joseph, do we have your contact?
I do believe you do.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. And we have no other public commenters online. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you so much. So we always appreciate the public comment. The backflow issue takes me back to when the city actually required those. You remember when that was, Tom? It was actually, I think it was on Via Gayuba, as I remember, where there was a backup. And that had to be 20 years or so. And since then, the city has required backflow devices and then has really tried to get the word out, but doesn't hurt to get the word out again that it's something the homeowner really should do. It's not terribly expensive and really does protect your home.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
on your consent agenda is an award of a contract up to $1 million for municipal improvement job order contract.
Yes.
And English Avenue will be part of the first work order cut to that contractor, and we're getting to English Avenue in the next 4 to 5 weeks.
Okay, good. In case you didn't hear our spectacular city manager, we have an item 4, a contract to $1 million, and English Avenue will be part of that contract. So you will be seeing the city out soon. Thanks for that. Thanks for that update. I don't know how you keep track of all that detail with everything that's on your plate, but that's why we like you. All right, we have on our consent, we had one item at the request of the public to be pulled. That was item 6. Did we have any other items that people wanted to have withdrawn from the consent?
Is item 8 going to be withdrawn? I thought I'd heard that it was.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say
Correct.
7? I meant 8. What did I
Okay.
say?
Item 6 and 8 are pulled. Mr.
6
Mayor.
and 8. I know. Okay, thank you. I don't know, frankly, what I said. I was thinking 8 on the NCIP, and item 6 we're going to pull as well. So is there any public comment on the consent other than item 6 and 8?
Mayor, I just have a comment on 9.
Okay, let's hear from the public, then if we can, we'll get back to you.
Okay.
Thank you. Tyler, Councilmember Tyler. And anyone on Zoom wanting to talk on the consent other than 6 and 8?
We do not have anyone on Zoom on consent items other than
Okay.
6 and 8.
Well, I'd entertain, and item 9, comment from Councilmember Tyler, please.
Yeah, so I think it's worth noting this one for folks that may not be looking at looking through the agenda point by point, but just high level, it's Montage Health Foundation donating some e-bikes to the Monterey Police Department. And so I think just in general, this is a really cool opportunity for us. It creates an environmentally friendly experience for our patrol officers. It makes it easier for them to get around and increase the services to our residents and visitors. So I just thought it was cool to bring this up and acknowledge that this is happening. I love these types of partnerships, and I'm happy to see that this is moving forward. So with that, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, minus items 6 and 8.
That's correct.
Okay, I'll second. If there's any discussion,
Just a comment.
yes, please.
Comment on 9. So I know the donation will be the 3 bikes, the e-bikes, but there'll be aftermarket additions that'll have to take place. So I imagine that there's adequate funds. I would just make the comment that whatever it is that they need to get them on the street as fast as they can, I hope certainly we can make an accommodation for the extra emergency equipment that needs to be added to the e-bikes.
Oh,
So
good.
I would encourage that, because I know they're not going to come with all of the things that they probably need. So
Uh-huh.
whatever it takes to be able to get those funds, endorse it coming back if you need to, but I imagine the chief is going to find the money.
Well, that's really an interesting insight that you provided too. It's more than just an e-bike.
Yeah, that's correct. So I think that's on. Is that on?
Yeah, you're good.
So the bicycles will come with obviously the batteries that need to run, and the actually if you buy most bicycles now, you don't get a side stand, but these e-bikes will come with a side stand, so the guys will be able to park the bikes, but we will have to supply the bike with lights and sirens.
Okay.
That is even more awesome.
And make sure you stop when they're behind you, Tyler.
I might have my earbuds in. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
There you go, Alan. Yes, the hand signals.
that's funny. Well, make sure it comes.
Always use our hand signals.
There you go. And make sure it comes with a ring-a-ding-ding little bell on it. All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Williamson, Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoppa,
Yes.
Councilmember Albert,
Yes.
and Mayor Robertson.
Yes. Thank you, Clementine. Okay, item 6. Could we have, I know Mr. Raleigh's here. Tom, did you want a brief staff report, or you just want to go right into your questions? Yes, please do. I would imagine you don't need a staff report on this item. You know it as well as anyone.
This is the staff report.
Okay.
Good evening, Tom Raleigh, President, Fisherman's Flats Homeowners and Residents Association, and also the NIP rep. And I was at the office, real estate office, on Friday afternoon. I said, oh, the city council agendas, better take a look at it. This is about 4:45. And consent agenda for this report. And it's dated January 2020, and I'd never seen it before. Our neighborhood hasn't seen it. I talked to the reverend at the church. He hasn't seen it. And I doubt if the school district has seen it either. But anyway, we make a very, very strong effort to coordinate with these people and the school and the church. And the last item, and you have to get all the way to the last attachment, in which we had about 40 people attend, when the specific recommendations were all voted down by the neighborhood because they felt they would not accomplish the goal of the traffic calming, except for a couple exceptions. One was we had just received the 2 radar speed signs on Via Sola, which worked, and we had like 3 days testing. We also had put in a project for radar speed signs on Johnson Canyon Road near the entrance to Deer Flats, where it goes from 35 to 30, from there to Salinas Highway. 2 projects which were never briefed was, one of the projects is the last page, in which I had trouble printing it out on our supercomputer. And in fact, this is Via Maritimo. And the problem with the 2D photo, when you have crests and hills and curves, is that what you think you're doing doesn't really work. And so that's what we came up with at the end of the meeting, was other than the radar speed signs and taking a look at signage, which is, wasn't, within the purview of the traffic calming study. So that was the unanimous result of the last attachment. So anyway, what I asked, I sent a quick email to the city manager's office. I called first thing Monday morning. I talked to the staff, Mr. Hardy, and he was very helpful. I provided him one thing that also we are going to obviously have to have a supplement to this, because the superintendent of schools has floated the idea of closing Foothill School next year. But with the idea of converting it to housing. So you have the same problem changing from school, which is a peak period morning and then afternoon. There's 2 peak convert times, traffic times in the afternoon. So anyway, there will need to be a supplement to this report, but we want to make sure what comes in this report before you approve it, that it really includes and is accurate. And so I've got a commitment from the church, and I will be talking to the school. Tomorrow is the first day of school.
Right.
So that's sort of where it's at. So I'm asking for, if probably September would be able to be really checked with all the people that are affected by this. and
Okay.
did participate, but in 2019 was our last meeting.
Got it. Right. Oh,
Thank you.
good. Thank you. Any other comments online or,
We do have one hand raised. Pat Venza has raised her hand,
okay?
and we'll welcome Pat to the meeting. If she could unmute herself, please, Pat.
I want to speak to number 8. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. We'll call you when we're back on item 8. Thank you, Pat. Okay, we have no other public comment on item
All right,
6.
we'll bring it back to the council and Councilmember Dan.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear on what Tom was requesting. Is Fisherman's Flats neighborhood asking us to wait on adopting this tonight? Is that what we're looking for, Tom? Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that I'm moved by the fact that, time has occurred, but with the new news of the school potentially closing, I'd hate to see us move too fast, although it's not fast. It's been in the works for several years, but to have any kind of a traffic calming that misses some newness because of the school input. So I'd like to postpone it for a short time to allow us to re-engage and also see what the school potential might change to the traffic calming. So I agree. I think a short continuance.
All right, it seems reasonable. And any staff reaction, Hans, rather than put you on the spot?
The past COVID year definitely was hurting that memory about the outreach that had happened. It's totally good to continue it for another 4 weeks. Just want to say that the project is almost out of money, so there's not a lot of additional traffic engineering to be paid for.
All right.
So, but of course we can continue to.
Okay, well, there's 2 ways to approach that. One is to continue it to a time certain, or if we table it, it doesn't mean we're forgetting about it. It just means I would rather table it, which means we don't have to put a specific time, and it can come back when the neighbors and their staff have a chance to meet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I see Mr. Raleigh thinks that makes some sense too. Councilmember Aller and Councilmember Tyler, any comments?
I'm fine with delaying.
Okay, well, I'll just make a motion to table this for now until the staff and the neighborhood can work together on it.
Second.
Any more discussion? Roll call?
Councilmember Albert,
Yes.
Councilmember Huffman,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Williamson,
Yes.
and Mayor Roberson.
Yes. Thank you, Tom. We appreciate you working so well with our staff. Thank you very much, and the neighborhood. And so we'll go to item 8, and if I may, I would just give a brief overview to item 8 in the introduction, and that is over the years, the NIP started in 1985 conceptually. 1988 actually was, that's at the time that I put it on the charter as a charter amendment for, TOT, hotel motel money to be ascribed at a proportion to the NCIP. And over the years, the committee's done some incredible work, probably has allocated well in the $100 million range by now for community-wide and city projects, neighborhood projects. And over the years, a manual has evolved. And when I came back in 2014 as your mayor, and thank you for the honor, the update to the manual was in the works. And here we are 7 years later, hopefully getting some conclusion to this. Meanwhile, we had a grand jury report, which recommended very highly that the city council pass an updated NCIP manual. And while we were doing that, we realized that probably there were things in the NCIP manual that should be adopted by ordinance. And because the NCIP manual was really designed to be a procedures manual to help the staff and the NCIP members to work through projects. And so we said, well, probably that's in the purview of the NCIP and our public works staff. And the reason it's on tonight for council adoption is the grand jury had asked that the city council take action as a council. So the recommendation tonight, that's a recommendation tonight, is for the council to approve the manual as presented with the stipulation that going forward, it would be the purview of our Public Works Department to make any changes as needed in the manual and as requested by the NCIP that makes sense procedurally. So this is really, probably doesn't even need council approval, but it was thought that it was probably a good idea, so we had closed that loop. But going forward, it will be the procedural manual within the purview of the staff and the NCIP. So I wanted to make that very clear, because I think there have been some folks who said, well, maybe we should do this and do that. Folks, I've been at this 7 years, and I would be very grateful to get this back to the staff, back to the NCIP, so they can practice it, work it out, get back together after not being together for almost 16 months, facing the challenge of which projects do they refund, which projects do they not. They have to go out and ask their neighbors how many people are still supportive of a project that had to be defunded. So this whole point of this is to have the council give a blessing to the NCIP manual. So it goes back to the staff and to the NCIP, and it's all theirs. So that's the whole intent of this. So with that, did we want to give more of an overview? City Manager?
Yeah, it's your pleasure, Council. Our Public Works Director is ready to provide a brief overview of
All
the
right.
manual.
Let's do that, please. So we'll welcome our stately Public Works Director, Mr. Witry.
Stately, wow, that's nice. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Yeah, as you mentioned, what we've done is looked at the manual and tried to adopt it or organize it so it can be more functional with the group that we're going forward with. I think that, as you mentioned, there were some items that were brought to light in the grand jury report. There were some procedural items in the process we wanted to streamline in an effort to help us address the backlog of projects. One of the things that this manual does, in the very beginning, it identifies a flow chart of how we can operate through the process. And I think that that was kind of lacking before because it was kind of unclear what had to happen where. This was an attempt to try to clarify the process to the public and to the NCIP members. The other thing that this manual does, and I can touch on it briefly, but I know that our city attorney can also touch on it as well if there's further questions, is one of the things that we've done through our process is we've changed in this procedure manual is we've changed the boundaries of some of the neighborhoods that are located within that. The effort here is to include every single square foot of property that's within the city limits. Previously, there were some areas of the city that were not under a recognized area or recognized neighborhood, and they would then have no say in that process. So what we've done now is the last page of the manual identifies a new map, a boundary map that would include every square foot of the city of Monterey so that everybody in those property owners in those areas would have a say moving forward. That's, like I say, a lot of it is just a cleanup, if you will. The mayor is very correct. It's been a long time in the process, but it's something that we think is workable. And we believe that this will be the best way to move forward. And with that, if there's any questions or if there's something I missed out, the city attorney can chime in.
Okay, do we have any council questions at this time for our staff? Councilmember Ed?
Just a comment. Not really a question.
Well, comments, we might wait till after public.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. And
Yeah.
Councilmember Allen?
Yeah, just wondering if we presented the proposed manual to the committee and if we had received any feedback from the committee.
It was presented to the chair and the vice chair for a review. There was some comments that were received. Some were incorporated into the document. Some were not able to be incorporated due to the legal ramifications that they would present. We have not brought the manual to the full NCIP committee, but it has gone to the chair and the vice chair.
And I think it's also the full NCIP was notified of this meeting So they had an opportunity to look at the manual. Correct?
I believe so, yes.
Yes. Okay. Let's go to the public, please. Anyone here in the audience? Mr. Raleigh? How long have you been on NCIP now?
What year did it start? 85, 86?
Were you original?
Since then. Either original or alternate. So
Okay.
actually Marilyn Maxner is the alternate for Fisherman's Flats now. So it's tough drumming up an alternate under the new system, believe me. And I noticed there's still, I think, 5 or 6 neighborhoods that still do not have alternates. So the new system, while I realize the effect of the civil grand jury is important, in certain ways, there's some negatives involved. Anyway, I just wanted to say it's great to see that there's going to be a map that doesn't leave anybody out. I know in our area, we've got a couple of little pocket neighborhoods along Jocelyn Canyon that are in the city, Twin Oaks Drive and the neighborhood where Frank DeNangelo lives, that really aren't in Fisherman's Flats or Deer Flats, but they really should be included in a neighborhood to count them. And so I'm looking forward to using that. And I'm sure if Rick Hoyer and Jamie Field looked at this, that it's as good a report as we can do. I hope that there's going to be a better opportunity to update it more frequently. And one of the things, when I ran out of time, I had unfortunately not been able to compliment. Some of you remember Hank Smith.
Yes.
Was president, died of cancer about 3 or 4 years ago. He was the one that first put in the traffic calming study, not 10 years, but maybe 7 or 8 years ago. So it takes a while. We had 3 community projects, community meetings in 2019. So some of these things do take a long time, and there won't be any cost to the city for the coordination that we'll be doing between, other than the NIP staff person. I'll be giving him a report on the results with the church and with the school. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Any other people in the audience? Okay, let's go to our Zoom participants, please.
Great. On Zoom, we have Pat Benza. Welcome back, Pat.
Okay, yeah, Pat Benza, Monterey Vista. I used to be one of the members of NCIP. And I believe the normal procedure for approval of a document like this would be that the committee involved with the issues, and in this case it's NCIP, would review and approve it as a committee before going to the city council. I don't think that has been done. I hear the mayor saying that, and I know that there's now a chair and a vice chair, which was never there before when I was a member. We were all kind of equals, but it hasn't gone before the whole committee. So I know that because of the Monterey grand jury comments on the NIP, now NCIP, there may be some rush to have this reviewed. Prior to the grand jury comments, a subcommittee of NCIP representatives had been working on a policy manual rewrite for many years. And the last rewrite, I believe, was done, this one we're talking about, was done mainly by attorney and the staff, probably based on the requirements mainly of the grand jury. That does not mean that the changes from the prior review and rewrites should not be reviewed and possibly included in this new policy manual. These members of the NCIP are dedicated to doing the best they can for the city and the NCIP program and should not be excluded from the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. And we will go to our next caller here, and that is Jean Rash. Hi, Jean.
Hi, thank you for your time. I'm the NCIP rep for 2 or 3 years from Monterey Vista and an alternate for Monterey Vista, neighborhood of 3,000 homes. I first read this draft Friday, 5 minutes from boarding a plane to Hawaii. That's not enough time. procedurally, it should be in the manual, if it's not, that the procedural policy and procedure manual is reviewed prior to adoption by the entire committee, by the whole commission. That should procedurally be the way it is. Substantively, I have some concerns about the changes. In particular, the staff dropped the discussion that we really need right now coming back into funding projects. We need the descriptions that are in the 2012 manual about deappropriating projects under either feasibility or request by neighbors or neighborhoods to deappropriate. So we have timely issues that I feel we need to rely on guidance within the policy and procedure, and those have all been eliminated in the draft, which concerns me. It also concerns me when procedures are cut short and then rushed in the name of time to the point where the citizens are left out. In this example, all but 2 commissioners in the commission. So if this is a rush job, we have had 2 fallow years where we have, as commissioners, done nothing. We could have been involved in Zoom meetings that have been very successful. We could have participated in this. And I think we should take many of the next months to review the draft. We don't have projects on the table. We don't have funding on the table, and come up with a really good draft that is reviewed by neighborhoods and commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. And let's see if we have anyone else. We do not. So that concludes public comment on item 8.
Okay, good. I appreciate very much the input from my friends, Tom, Jean, and Pat. And I think what we're recommendation tonight actually accomplishes what is being asked. And that is, frankly, I'd like to get the council out of the business of approving the NCIP manual. And I think this does it. So I would just say to my 3 friends that this isn't a rush job. As I said, 2014, I'm on the NCIP subcommittee, and I was working with trying to get a draft written, and we just frankly weren't getting anywhere. Nobody's fault. We just it kind of spun, and then we got the grand jury came along, and so this action tonight allows the council to approve a manual, but it gives total authority to the staff to revise it as needed. So I would the couple items that were brought up. Jean's always has such good recommendations. Those can be discussed and incorporated later. And it does not have to come back to the city council. That's what's kind of laborious about this. This is really what the city recommendations, and in my interview, I was very kindly, but directly asked, why haven't you approved this thing? And that was 2 years ago. So this is why I think it really does accomplish what is being asked by our speakers, in that the NCIP will get the manual. The staff in the NCIP can try it out. We'll see how it works, and they can change it as needed. So it really does allow them, I think, get what they want. The ability to work on the NCIP manual, change it to make it work for them. So that's the way I look at it. Other input? Obviously, I'm close to this because as the founder of the NCIP, along with Richard Rosillo, who is still a member, by the way, one of the founding members, I've probably attended more meetings than probably anyone, maybe not Tom, but I've hardly missed a meeting. So I understand all the travails and difficulties, and also the incredible accomplishments and the time the NCIP puts into this, all the members. So it's my intent to give you a manual that's yours, that you can use and change, and makes it work for you. That's the whole intent of this. Other comments?
Yeah, I have a
Councilmember Dan,
comment,
please.
or a question, actually, for you, Clyde. So what we're approving tonight is basically a draft manual, because it'll go back to to the NCIP committee, and they may come up with some other ideas about what are in but it doesn't come back to us.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a draft. I would call a working document, one that
Okay.
can.
Like
be
a
worked
budget.
And, yeah, like a budget. Yeah.
Okay, I see. But it doesn't close the neighborhoods, the NCIP commissioners from changing it.
No, it actually allows them to do it.
Okay. All right.
Could you clarify, does it allow them or does it allow staff to do it?
Well,
So,
it's a-
for example, if the committee wanted some sort of a change in the manual, but the staff disagreed, what would happen at that point?
Well, I would guess, Councilmember Allen, we'd be right back here in the council chambers looking at the NCIP manual. What's the staff reaction to Allen's question?
The way the manual is drafted now, it leaves the discretion to staff.
Okay.
And yeah, and that was deliberate because we were in a process, and Mayor Roberson, I started the process in 2012, I believe, of subcommittee, NCIP, legal review, going back in a circle and a circle and a circle. And sometimes committees would like things to be included that are not legally recommended, and then it gets stalled. And so it's not recommended. Public Works Department can work with the NCIP committee, and if the changes are legally acceptable, I'm sure there's not going to be hurdles to getting that implemented. But the discretion should be left with staff, as is for most manuals in the city. And primarily the legal components of this have been pulled out of the manual and put into an ordinance. And then also the Fair Political Practices Commission also addressed the voting procedures and process. And then other components touched on by Ms. Rash are actually addressed in the charter and in budgeting processes of the city. So they're already covered elsewhere. So that would be my comments on this.
Okay.
So I guess my thought is, I think getting it right now is maybe a little bit more important than it might have seemed, because I think getting things changed might not be so easy. So I would be more I'd be more comfortable if everybody on the committee at least had the opportunity to share their comments before the final draft. And I do appreciate the city attorney's input on the value of having ultimate decisions for something like this be a staff decision, because sometimes residents and committees really don't understand the legal limits or other impacts it might have on staff time, things like that. So I do think in the end that part of the document is right, but it makes me feel like I want to make sure I get it right this time before we approve it. So I think I would favor not 2 months, but maybe giving NCIP a month to discuss this, and then they can provide their feedback to us before we approve it.
And Alan, I'm more than happy to go with the majority of the council. So I appreciate that input. I would just point out that they've been more or less operating without a procedurals manual since 2012. It goes way back. And when one can almost make the case, well, if it's gone that long, why do they need one in the first place? But it contains all of the timelines and the procedures, all of the extraordinarily work that they've done over the years. But I'm more than happy to go with the council majority on this, whatever you're comfortable with. Other thoughts?
Mayor, I have a question. What do we know when their next meeting is going to be? Do we have an idea-ish?
I don't know personally. I'll be there, but I don't know.
Mayor Roberson, that meeting has not been scheduled yet.
Do we have an idea of when we plan on scheduling that, though?
Our next ballpark time was the end of August.
Okay, so I can kind of see why there's a need or an interest to try to get it done before the initial meeting, but I kind of am inclined to agree with what Alan's saying. I think getting it right here would be helpful. And I think the question still exists that Alan asks in regard to what if the NCIP disagrees with the decision or determination that staff is making. What does that process look like? Because I can already see some of the members coming up to maybe some of the council and asking for action. And it would probably just be better if there was a clear process. And I'll just give an example of maybe a potential solution, which could be, if the majority of the NCIP disagrees with the staff determination, that they could vote to have it brought forward to the council. So I don't know if that's the solution, but I'm just trying to think outside the box. And I agree, though, that I think that it would be helpful to allow all the members to provide feedback.
Okay, thank you. And again, not to argue, but my comment would be that the staff and the NCIP members have worked together extraordinarily well for 35 years. I just can't imagine where if it's a procedure comes up that the staff would say, oh, no, we're not interested in that. The reason we split or took some of the things out of the manual because they were legal and they were council policies. None of the procedural things were taken out, but that's fine. If you want to take that extra step, I have no problem. Councilmember Dan, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I would. What I'm hearing, it seems like what I'm hearing is that it took so long to get to this spot. And any more delays means that we don't have a manual. And I'm okay with putting it on hold as long as that timeline is met. So if it is a month, the committee needs to know, the NICP committee needs to know that your month is up. It's coming back to the council. The council is going to vote on it. I mean, that, because I could see that it could be delayed and then delayed again because it couldn't come to an agreement on one or two items. And then before you know it, it's 2, 3, 4 months down the road. So to me, it just seems like from what Clyde is saying is that when it does go to the committee, it can be changed. It can be changed. So,
but we're always, as a council, we're always open to, if folks need a little more time, we're very respectful of that. So would the thought be to call for a meeting of the NCIP to review the manual? Is that what you're kind of driving at, Alan?
Yeah, and I do take Dan's point, which is that I don't think we want to delay this indefinitely or for a long period of time. We want to have it ready to go as we begin the next season of NCIP. And it also may be that the committee won't come to consensus on things they disagree on. That's fine. But we would be able to get that feedback from the whole committee. I would feel more comfortable than just having 2 of the members who've had a chance to look at it. And so they would schedule a meeting in the next month. They could provide their collective feedback and their individual feedback where they disagree. And then we can make a final determination and get it approved.
Okay, thank you. We'll ask our city manager for some input.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you so much. I'm very much afraid that this will be a circular motion. Again, that we are not getting any progress accomplished if we go through the NCIP as we did since 2012. What you have in front of you is something that is workable, but I understand the concerns or the question raised, and I also listen carefully what the council has said. So my suggestion is, let's continue this item to 4 weeks and allow the NCIP to come up here and issue public comments to that. And then we bring back in 4 weeks the item as it is presented right now. Again, it is probably a circular motion if we go back to the drawing board, but giving 4 weeks to the NCIP representatives and any other neighbors to look at that, look it over, and then solicit their public inputs at that meeting in 4 weeks. And then put the manual up for vote and make sure that the council members are all on board with that. So that's my proposal, to continue the item as is, give the NCIP opportunity to further read it, further understand it, understand the systematic. Again, it's not about leaving stuff, making decisions there that the NCIP doesn't like. It's more about having a legal document and ensuring that we have a document that complies with all the recommendations that also the civil grand jury gave up. So with that, I think if that's maybe a thought that the council would consider, it would help probably.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion that we continue this until the first meeting in August, or in September, excuse me.
Okay.
I'll go ahead in second, and if I could just add, I'm not sure if this is helpful or appropriate, but I imagine that it would make it easier for staff to be able to respond if if the concerns that folks had in regards to the document were submitted in advance to their meeting. So that way there could be time for staff to assess, and then when they get to the meeting, they can discuss it a little bit more, but it gives staff a little bit of prep time to give a good response and have an effective conversation. So when it comes forward to us, hopefully all the kinks are worked out.
Yeah, I think, Tyler, I may misunderstood you, but the motion, I think, as Alan's made it, was reflecting the suggestion of the city manager in that it would come back to the city council, which would not go to the NCIP for an agendized meeting, but to ask all of the NCIP members to give their public input to the council for our meeting in September.
Thanks for the clarification. And so I think the same concept applies, but maybe before the next council meeting to get those to the staff so that there's time. Because I imagine that if we're taking their public input during the council meeting and staff doesn't really have time to really assess, how that might work and the legalities that might surround some of those issues, it just would be helpful. As I guess I would just offer that opportunity for the NCIP members.
Yes, and that's always an awesome suggestion for any item on our agenda. In fact, if we can get things ahead of time, it really helps us. So we can listen to people because we're just limited. Okay, so you understand the motion and you've seconded it, Tyler?
That's correct.
Okay, Councilmember Ed, comments?
Yeah, I wanted to weigh in on some of this, but I'm glad that we had the conversation because it brought out a few things. I think the resolution to postpone for a month is adequate. I keyed in on the whereases, and there's a line in there, and I think there's an opportunity for us to, I don't know, go back and say, okay, here's what we have in the legislation that we've talked about, and it's the intent of the council that this be a collaborative process going forward when NCIP has some suggestions for the things that make sense and that staff can live with. But in the whereases, it's got, let me give you the page number, packet page 452. Let's see. Now, therefore, be it further resolved by the council of the city of Monterey that it hereby authorizes the Public Works Director to make subsequent edits to the manual without the need for city council approval. I think that's a good thing, but if staff could massage that and loop back around and make it known in this document that really our intent is that there are going to be things that are suggested and there will be opportunities from in the future, then NCIP will make recommendations to tweak or modify. But it's not really, I don't want to go back and have to redo this whole process again, because I recall there was a lot of work on staff and committee members around the legal portion. And I think that there are certain things of this manual that really are staff and have to be driven by staff. But at the same time, we're not closing it down to future suggestions to modify the manual. So I think there needs to be some language that addresses the spirit of this, but ultimately it is the city staff's driving policy that's sanctioned by the city council, but we're always open for modifying things as we have innovation and creative ideas that move forward that make operations make sense. So I think with a pause of 4 months, If
Or
we
wait,
can add that somewhere and convey that to our committee members, I think that's what they want to hear. I think they want to just know that it's an ongoing document, that there will be suggestions with innovations in the future. But it ultimately does have to sit somewhere in city staff. I think Public Works is the right place. I think the Public Works Director supervises the appointed coordinator for NCIP in the projects, comes to us for the expenditures. So it makes sense that the city does have the ultimate authority to make appropriate edits and keep it moving along. But we're not closing it down for future suggestions and modifications that make sense. So I think if we can get that language in there, we might get the committee to be a little bit more comfortable and know this is not top-down driven.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think the whole point is staff wants a procedural manual so it knows how to implement the program.
Absolutely.
That's the motivation.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was going to say 2019, I think they had a sort of a trial run through the process of voting. And the feedback I got was it went really well. And instead of a 7-hour meeting, it wound up being like a 3-hour meeting. So it seemed like that was a good first start, that we're onto something that may be a better manual and a better methodology, but it doesn't close the idea for future innovation.
Exactly. Well summarized. I think we're all on the same page here. Roll call, please.
Could I just double check, did the mover and seconder approve that amendment?
The addition of the wording by Councilmember Ed?
Yes.
Well, I don't think it's a modification to the motion. I think that staff heard it. I think the motion.
Okay. I thought I had heard Hans say that it would come back exactly as is at the next meeting. So that's why I'm double checking which way the motion goes.
Well, we're talking about the resolution, not the manual.
Yeah.
The suggestions that Councilmember Ed made were about the resolution, not about the manual.
I see. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Hoffa,
Yes.
Councilmember Williamson,
Yes.
Councilmember Albert,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
and Mayor Roberson.
Yes. And we look forward to the input from our NCIP members very much. And I've talked to many of them and I try to do that regularly. All right, council comments.
I have no comments tonight.
Okay, Councilmember Ed.
I'm out of air. I can't make any more comments.
Councilmember Tyler.
I'll pass for tonight.
Yes, we have a closed session agenda, so thank you. Councilmember Allen.
And I'll also defer.
Okay, as will I. And city manager reports.
I will use the time. We opened this week the senior center. That is quite a success for us. We are happy to welcome seniors back at the Schulze Center, and we have programming there. And I'm personally very happy about that because I remember these conversations I had with a lot of neighbors that were just afraid that we were using this opportunity to keep it permanently closed. And I reassured them, no, we will reopen when we can, and here we are. We have our preschool program is in full swing. We have 4 classes again, so we're very happy about that. Our firefighters, most of them are back. We had last week and 15 firefighters working in different spots in the state of California. 10 of them returned today, all safe and sound. 5 of them are still out. The bookmobile started running today on 4 of their routes again. That's also very exciting. On Thursday, we will be launching our brand new website design that has been ongoing work for the past, I want to say, 2 months, 2.5 months between in the city manager's office and in collaboration with the vendor, but also in collaboration with all our departments. So I invite a lot of folks to check out the new websites. We will actually launch it and have a little game going on. People go onto the website and find certain things that we hide there. They can win enormous prizes there. Last but not least, important, August 14, we will have a sidewalk at the Laguna Grande Park. It starts at 10 a.m. on August 14. This is a walk together with the team that will take a look at how can we repurpose, reuse, how can we redesign Laguna Grande Park. They will meet and on the seaside side in the barbecue area. So that's where the parking lot is and where they have the barbecue places. So again, Laguna Grande Park, August 14, sidewalk starting at 10 a.m. And that's all what I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, good. And there was a town hall meeting held by our planning department to get input. It was a Zoom meeting and I watched most of it to get input on the plan that has been authorized, that's in process. And we had a lot of really good suggestions, and this is a really important next step. Thank you for that. We're going to give one last chance to anyone in the public who wanted to talk about any closed session items.
We have none on Zoom, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and anyone here? No? So in that case, thank you, everyone. Thank you, council, staff, public, for once again making a very interesting, informative meeting. I always learn from them, so I thank you kindly. We'll adjourn to closed session.